I'm the Geeky Amreeki.
And I'm Jordan Eastwood.
And you're watching Distance Socializing. What is esports and can anybody be involved in esports?
So esports is a wide variety of things. It doesn't have to be competitive gaming. There's loads of different avenues to esports. I know a lot of the big focus is, these big famous players, on the big stages. Esports is a lot, so content creators, social media managers. There is a lot in terms of social development as well. So, using video games to really help push things like mental health, support. A lot of people like getting away in competitive video games because it brings that social aspect and making new friends. So anybody can access it. Esports is a very, very niche area of the games industry that really, excels that competitive edge in positive light. And, in careers, there's tons of stuff you can do in careers, which we'll touch on as well. As I said before, you don't have to be a competitive player at all.
So how would you go, like here in Qatar, we have a lot of small groups or some pretty sizable ones. Like we have a crew of guys, Smash Brothers Qatar. They are super dedicated and they have before Corona, they were doing like weekly tournaments every Friday, serious about it, prizes, all that stuff. How would say those guys go from being local or regional or whatever to an actual esports team that could possibly be sponsored and stuff?
It's good that you mentioned Smash Brothers. Obviously, it's huge in the US. It's also huge in the UK as well. One area that I helped in terms of LAN events in the UK was definitely the fighting game scene. So Smash was a part of that, Tekken, Street Fighter. Fighting games is a really good place to start because it's got the highest LAN capacity. So gaining that sort of face-to-face value and experience is very key, especially if you do want to go into the industry at a higher point, because you need that experience dealing with different gamers, dealing with people who might want to know about a new video game. And you can take those skills into going into a professional team and, going higher up in the ranks. LAN's a very important thing, especially if you want to grow your career, because as I said, you need to connect. Gaining that social growth is very important, especially for growing your esports career. A lot of the big teams are founded off players that have really, really pushed themselves on the main stages. Even at lower LAN competitions, people have become sort of social icons within that area. So one area that I work in is Halo. And I've seen a lot of the guys in the UK who've come from very small, just becoming well known. And even if they've not made it to the big leagues in terms of their own team, they've still got those sponsorships and they've still grown the career. So, LAN competition is very important, especially, as I said, with the guys in Qatar, obviously with Smash Bros, they'll know a lot of people that are sort of coming up in that scene. They're gaining that social sort of background and, development for themselves and their career.
I know with me I think I was in Japan at the time when Xbox One came out, right? Not Xbox One, the first Xbox, all right?
Yeah.
And then I got like Halo, Hunter, and some other games. That was when it was like kind of just starting to happen. And then we started, people saw me playing Halo at the fire station because I was a firefighter at the time. And so then everybody bought these big, disgusting CRT TVs. They put them in their bunk rooms, and then we had the LAN cables run through the station just so we could put the 4 Xboxes together. So how did you guys go from, hey, let's connect them and play Blood Gulch or whatever, to this?
Actually, I'll probably just give an example from, my own career.
Yeah.
So I started competitively at the age of 9 from CS 1.4. I remember my dad coming back with Counter-Strike, and he put it on the computer that we had in the house at the time on really terrible internet. And I played, and I couldn't believe I was playing against other players. And the best thing was before that I was playing Unreal Tournament, just single player and a few online matches, but it was pretty unplayable. So Counter-Strike was my first proper online experience. And then my dad bought my own computer. and literally went from there and then grew. And it's that foundation of playing competitive games and that love, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and then now it's more socially acceptable to be sort of in a career with video games, just playing them from a competitive standpoint. Halo's my first console multiplayer game. So for me, playing that online and, meeting loads of friends and, getting featured on the UK Xbox magazine and all that type of stuff, playing in competitions all the time. And then going from that to Call of Duty, I've seen esports grow, especially mainstream. And it's just having, just growing my passion into a career. And I think that's what it is for a lot of people in the industry. We've got that huge growth of people finding that love for competitive gaming and those friendships and those competitions, and turning that into something that's now portrayed in mainstream media, which is crazy. My career spanned over events and social media management and community management. So I've literally just gone from a normal player, being a small kid, got bullied in school for playing games, and that's another issue. And now I've actually made a career out of it, which is awesome to see.
Suck it, bullies.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it. Like, obviously, a lot of people see gamers as social outcasts, and it's not all the time. Gaming's very inclusive. If we sit there and play Mario Kart or Smash Brothers, Smash Brothers is a really good, fighting game that's really inclusive. Anyone can play, and that's the best thing about gaming. It's just that it used to be sort of stigmatized towards people who were really shy and like didn't go outside the house and all that type of stuff.
Still is to a point.
Yeah, it is, and that's the thing now. You can literally make it a career. And we're seeing a lot of people who aren't sort of in esports coming into esports.
Because it's where the money is now.
Well, yeah. But I mean, in terms of career, social media managers, influencers, type stuff. So, the core sort of center of esports are the people who find that passion. It's like me, like I'm not going to be a racing fan in terms of esports. I can never be an analyst for it. League of Legends, I played it right at the beginning, but because I only play it casually, I'm not a huge expert. Like,
yeah, but man, it's so much going on. Like, I watch it and I'm like, and then they're calling out every little thing. I'm like, how is it even possible? It's like StarCraft with the South Koreans.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just, as you said, you can play the game, but you might not be an expert. But that's the best thing with gaming. You can learn and you can develop. So if you're a fan of speedrunning, which is something that I'll go over in my presentation, and that's going to be the next big thing in esports, you could literally love RPG games, and that can be your esport. You're knowledgeable, so everyone's included in esports in that way, and that's a great way. Going from being a love for games into a career.
Obviously, right now we're all stuck in the house. We're all playing our games and everything. And what's funny is, like the World Health Organization said that gaming. What was they diagnosed it almost like a disease. Remember a few months back? And then like a month into the lockdown, now they're like, everybody should play games. What do you think this means for esports, the lockdown, Corona, and all that stuff?
So obviously COVID's really pushed the online scene. I think that's very important to note that pretty much now we're seeing online infrastructures, like they have to prove themselves. So with the recent stuff, with a lot of developers now taking back control from third-party esports providers, with stuff like franchising, they're now going to have to battle with their own servers on how esports competitions can be done in an extremely fair way. So we've been seeing that with Overwatch League, Call of Duty League. How do you keep that fairness while people are still at home? That's going to be the biggest challenge, and I think this is going to prove why online works, but also why LAN competitions are so important as well.
Big mountain to climb, man.
Yeah, the toxicity stuff's like really big, especially with elite fanboyism between consoles and online infrastructures and stuff. So how do you stop that from happening in game? I personally had it during events where people have literally been toxic in-game chat and it's just not looked good on stream, and how does that affect the brand partners as well? So there's loads to it. On online you can only control so much, where in online you can control everything pretty much. So it's a big challenge, and I think the esports industry will come out stronger for it, because now we'll have a lot of contingency plans for online competitions if sort of like a second spike happens, or anything else major happens where we have to stay in.
The only people I know that aren't really like rushing as much are tech people. I don't know if it's because in the industry they do a lot of research and they're online all the time, but everybody's in such a hurry to get out of the house. Like, I'd love to go back to the movie theaters or just at the game store, whatever, man. Seeing the tournaments online is great, but if I had the chance to go down to like a stadium and watch an event, of course I would want to do that. So what do you think that this also means? It's obviously been a boon for esports online, but what about live events and stuff?
So one of the big things is when we sort of go into LAN competitions, one of the biggest things that we get slated for in esports is hygiene. There's loads of different words for it in terms of the disease that you get when you go to esports competitions or sort of gaming expos. It is a big thing. You're sharing controllers. You're sort of in the same space. One big thing that we aim to do was to clean all the equipment after people have used it. One thing we also do say as well is bring, hand sanitizer. It's a big thing. So, just that alone means that in terms of esports, it's not going to be great. LAN competitions. There is certain things that you can do. So you can space people out. So there is social distancing on stage. But in terms of a crowd, that won't be able to happen. I think there was a funny meme about a visual theatre that had a crowd in, and like literally with social distancing, there was like literally 20 people in like a 2,000-seater sort of theatre. So that's the sort of way I see it. I think LAN competitions, especially grassroots, are pretty much done for quite a while right now, and that's an issue for grassroots development that I see. So I teach a lot of parents, I teach a lot of sort of young people in the UK through LAN tournaments, getting the actual experience, going out there and doing it. I won't be able to do that now. So realistically, how am I going to do that? And especially practice, sort of hygiene and, safe social distancing and, make sure everyone's safe, because that's a huge thing. And that's just not the only issue with health at esports events that we had to consider. There's obviously security as well, as we know through some of the stories.
Especially football.
Yeah, the Madden event, and there's been other events as well where there's been violence. So we also need to make sure security is there to keep everyone safe. So there's loads of stuff that people need to learn that sort of they don't think about when they're entering esports. And that's the way sort of COVID's going to affect that as well. From a hygiene point of view, how's a security guard going to check someone safely with like the COVID stuff going on? And, there's loads of possibilities. We don't know until someone actually tries it. So that's sort of the biggest thing. Obviously in the UK with lockdown, we're pretty much not able to do anything right now. So until those guidelines come out for big events, especially football matches, they're starting back up on the 17th, but with nobody in the stadium. In terms of social inclusion with esports and getting them in LAN events, it's going to be very difficult, especially with something that's an invisible enemy, basically.
I'm a kid. And I like playing Fortnite, and I play it like 6 hours. Well, now who knows how much I play it, but when things were normal, whatever. After school, I play it for like 4 hours. On the weekends, who knows, 6 to 10 hours. Or I'm a parent who knows that my kid's doing that and knows that they love it. Everything else. Now, obviously, there was the kid who nobody had heard about yet or whatever, and then he entered the Fortnite tournament and won what was like $3 million or something. How can that kid or the parent work together or whatever to help them get into esports?
I've been working with adults and parents on how they can use esports as a way to really increase their relationships with their kids. So Fortnite's a really good example, because obviously with Fortnite being so big, it's really good to know how it works, and you only need to know those fundamentals to really sort of understand, what your child is getting out of it. So obviously we had multiple people, even from the UK, win those, Fortnite World Champs. And earn a lot of money, and a lot of parents are like, wow, you can actually earn money now, from playing games. But it takes a lot of dedication, and what people don't see behind the scenes is when I became pro at COD 4, I was literally spending 8 hours a day practicing and competing. And to a parent, that'll look really bad, especially if you're not doing anything with your education either. So you're not doing your homework, or so, I mean, I was lucky that my parents understood where I was going with my career. And they knew if I didn't go in esports, I'd definitely go into video games. So it's dependent on the parent. Some parents are understanding, some aren't. Especially when I've been training parents, some don't believe in video games can be healthy or good for someone, and some do, because they've seen the kid really grown in. They've seen the kid grow in sort of confidence. They've seen the kid grow, especially if they've got Asperger's or autism. They found a voice, basically. It's all dependent on your parents, basically. Each one's different. Everyone understands in different ways, and obviously we've got different cultures, and so it's very important that we sort of take that in and see where these people have grown up, and how they've become esports athletes, and when I sort of develop a guide for people, it's always me sort of working with them on building that guide, because as I said, everyone's so different. So that sort of career progression, is different. And, working with parents is very, very key. Getting them to understand how games work, and, how sort of we can sorry, an example would be, all right, so you built, 3x4, and you'll be like, oh, wow, you actually know what that means. Yeah. And then you start building that relationship from that. It's like my dad in Counter-Strike. He was a really well-known AWPer, with the sniper rifle. And he was amazing at it, but I was terrible. But, me and my dad bonded over that. Even though we've not got a great relationship, we bonded over it, and it was a way for him to understand how I play. And how I grow my career. So he fit me in his esports team in certain areas where I'd sort of run objectives, because I was better at that.
So you're like an esports legacy.
Yeah, so it's very, very weird. I was very, very lucky, and that's sort of the thing.
How old are you?
I'm 30, so I became 33 months ago. Yeah, I've already got grey hair, so yeah. But yeah, so anyway, I'll stop waffling on. But yeah, it's parents understanding, and how do we help them understand esports, or just the game in general, just understanding that core gameplay.
I did this video a while back. It's not online anymore or anything, but I asked, I think it was 12 different ladies what they thought of games. Most of them were older. There were a couple younger. And I asked them like specific questions. Is gaming an art form? When I say esports athlete, what do you picture? All this kind of stuff. And the answers, man, there was such a massive spectrum. And there was only like one out of the 12 who was like, knew the thing and was kind of, I guess, hip to it or whatever. And most of the others were just like, no, whatever. I don't understand it. I don't think it's an art form, etc. But I think a lot of people don't realize a lot of the benefits. Like there's the thing that surgeons who play video games, especially puzzle games, have 37% less accidents. They're more accurate, all these little things. So all of these surgeons, it's kind of like hockey players that took up juggling. Those same hockey players now play video games because it helps their hand-eye coordination. Then you've got color differentiation, spotting movement, peripheral vision, and there's a lot more. But what do you think some of the ones that like team-based esports or something can help you get better at?
This stems from the old argument that people who played Guitar Hero thought they could play guitar, or Rock Band. But yeah, I mean, even then, it still helped the skills of multitasking. So there was some transferable skills from that that you could sort of include. In terms of careers, obviously, you said about surgeon played puzzle games. A good analogy for that would actually probably be Rocket League. Rocket League's probably the best game I've seen where you visually see yourself improve the more you play it and understand how the physics work in the game. I'm trained in game development. I spent a lot of my time playing hundreds of thousands of video games to understand them and watch people play them and how they play them and, you know, what they take from that. And as you said, you know, stuff like color cues. So stuff like red versus blue is a very common thing. So, you know, like red's the enemy, blue's like, you know, your teammates. And stuff like, say, like Breath of the Wild, there'll be stuff that's green, so you instantly know like it's a side objective. And it's the same with esports. There's loads of different cues in there. Now, as the same with Rocket League, each rank sort of says exactly what you can and can't do in the game. It's very, very interesting. I've been so impressed by it because I've only recently got into Rocket League the past year and a half. There was a student that was extremely talented at Rocket League. Like, he did a lot of agency stuff and finding players out. And he was teaching me Rocket League, and I'd never played it before. And just teaching me how to sort of like boost in the air and hit the ball in the air or jump off the wall, that separates me from being a gold and platinum player. So, so yeah, it's very, very interesting. And in terms of game theory, that's something that you need to understand, especially within esports. I especially train as a level designer. I love building worlds where people get involved, and the biggest issue, especially with an esports setting, is how do you balance a map out? How do you make it enjoyable for people to keep replaying? So, example, we're seeing that issue with Valorant right now, where the maps are really unbalanced and they're not really fun to watch or play. So for me,
you even get to play it.
well, I got it day one, so yeah, just saying. But yeah, but it's one of them, like, game development starts coming into it then, especially if you want to be an esports analyst. How does certain games help you? You know, Tetris as well, playing puzzle games. You know, I'm terrible at Tetris, and I rinse it on the Switch every single night now. And now I'm literally like getting in the top 10, you know, dropping bricks down like really quick, and, you know, getting those Tetris lines and whatever. So yeah. So yeah, practice makes perfect. You know, and there's tons of skills that you can take from esports. It's not just playing a video game. As said, you know, learning level design, you know, that was a key thing for me to analyze esports players, and it was a key thing for me actually when I was competing, because I would look at maps from a top-down view, and that really made me strategically plan out certain plays for my players. And that's what I love about level design. But then you'll have someone who's an audio designer that'll figure out certain sounds, and, you know, gameplay designers who will notice some gameplay cues and stuff like that. So yeah, it doesn't just stem from esports and playing a video game. It stems from literally core skills that you can learn that can go into different areas, and then put that together.
You've got games like, have you played Hunt Showdown at all or seen it?
Yeah, I've got my copy right here, actually.
Okay, nice.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
So you've got a game like Hunt Showdown, which can be really complicated, dense layered. The audio cues are crazy. And then you've got like Rocket League, which also can, of course, be very complicated. Like, I played Rocket League as soon as it came out and they made it free to play. I played it for like a day and I'm like, yeah, I suck at this. No thanks. And plus, I've never been like a big soccer football guy. I mean, I got into it more when I came over here to the GCC. I've been here 10 years now, and here, like, basically everywhere but America, really, like, football is almost like religion. Like, it's the most important thing in a lot of people's lives and stuff. So what makes something like Rocket League maybe a better esports fit than Hunt Showdown?
It's all about that visual narrative. I'll go into visual narrative now. That's basically the question. So visual narrative is really important. So what makes an esport really interesting to watch? So if we look at Overwatch, there is too much going on the screen. Like, if you ever watch Overwatch League, and the casters are trying to literally call out certain things that are happening. Personally, I can't follow it. Like, I played Overwatch. I played it since launch. And even I'm like, what is going on? Like, unless I play it, I can't visually see what is actually happening. And just think, from a visual narrative point of view, for someone who might not play Overwatch, that's going to be extremely complex to learn.
Yeah.
Now, and it's very hard to see who's really good and who's not. So if we look at a good example I used actually in a talk that I did, was Street Fighter or fighting games. When you play fighting games, like from a visual narrative point of view, it's hard to follow because all you see is a health bar. But what someone who's really into fighting games knows about neutrals, about certain combos, about frame data. That's all the stuff that you can't visually show in esports, which makes fighting games really hard to follow. Where when you look at Rocket League, everything's visually in front of you. You can see if someone's better than someone else because the pacing's right. It's, there's certain things in there like cool little tricks and stuff that you can do.
Yeah.
If we look at Counter-Strike, that's got really good sort of visual narrative because you can see when an FPS player is really good because the way they aim, the way they use sort of smokes, grenades, anything like that. So visual narrative is very, very key for your question. Each genre has different ways they can sort of do that visual narrative.
Yeah, it's like the other night I played Overwatch for the first time in I think a year and a half since before Hammond came out and stuff. And my God, dude. And like a lot of this stuff has changed to say updated how you can select what class you're going to be or whatever. And I don't know. So I thought it was like, oh, these are like a new thing because it said play for loot box. So I clicked all three and it kept making me support because nobody ever plays support. And I kept the first few games I did Mercy and I was never a Mercy player. I was like Anna or Arisa. I was playing with a guy here, Khalifa. He owns like a computer store. He's like with the best, probably one of the best Overwatch players I've ever seen who's not a pro. Like he's unreal. And like he can see everything and calls it out and he'll be typing stuff in and voice chatting all while. So I'm playing and I can't even remember like how to heal and like everything's happening. And he was like, oh, you got to get this person. They're about to do their ultimate. And I'm like, bro, I don't even know how to chat. It was a mess. What makes a caster great for, say, a normie, like a normal person who doesn't play the game, who's never really watched esports, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things, especially since you're on camera, is be entertaining. That's sort of the biggest thing. So I tried casting a few tournaments and I'm not very great because of my accent. I've got that northern accent that's like really dull. So to be fair, like there is some really good northern casters, in terms of esports.
You'd be great for a golf game.
I mean, my uncle plays golf, but it's just, you've got to be entertaining. I think that's the biggest thing. You are on stream. It's like being taught, actually. When I'm in a classroom and I'm teaching, I'm really energetic, but I do it through like, my body motions and, my hand signals and all that type of stuff to keep people's attention. And I'm really loud as well. So, other teachers tell me to shut up because I'm talking too loud. But like people will engage with that. So how do you do that on the stream? And the only way you can do that is literally vocally be entertaining. Some people have those voices that literally just keep you watching because it's like soothing and it's entertaining. There's nothing worse than someone that literally sat there and talking like this. You need that entertaining caster, that really excels the excitement. So if a big play happens, a big play's happened because literally his mic just starts muting because he's like going that crazy. So, that's really good. It shows passion as well for the video game. And that's something that a lot of people look forward to. I say like someone's casting a game and I knew they thought they knew the video game and they actually didn't. And I was watching them and you could tell the information they were saying was extremely wrong. That's also a big thing for a new person that can be like, I know he's lying, so why should I take this guy credible or woman credible? So, it's a big thing, in terms of you just need that entertainment value. That's what esports half is. On stream, it's very entertaining. When you're actually on the show floor or you're on stage, it's a whole different ball game. If you watch the football match, it'd be boring if you was talking about Messi and it was just, very, very bland.
Greatest player of this generation.
I'm a United fan, so yeah.
No, I'm saying like if he was saying it like that, you know what I mean?
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, for me it'd be more about like Liverpool or whatever.
Nah, no way.
Are you a United or City?
Oh, I'm United, mate. Don't, yeah. Not a City fan. Like the blue half's on the other side of the city, so yeah, the red half. That's where I'm from. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, United all the way.
Hmm.
Well, both Manchester clubs have done
Yeah,
well,
we're
but
done. Let's go ahead and close this out. What is it, like 51% of gamers now are females, right?
yeah,
Now, the majority of them, their favorite thing tends to be like RPGs statistically. There are obviously like sick first person shooter players, all that kind of stuff. I think gamer girls can be like interpreted as like a negative connotation now because when some people think of gamer girls, they think, "Oh, I've got the controller and I'm going to take pictures with it or whatever." But I'm
yeah.
talking about like real gamer girls and stuff. So obviously, like ladies can do it just as well. So why aren't we seeing more of that?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things, I mean, I have experience within this because I did have a women's Counter-Strike team when I owned
Mm.
my own team. They're absolutely amazing. Like, you know, they really want to compete on high levels. And as they were saying, because I spoke to them a lot about, you know, what can we do in the industry to change that. There's always still that stigma that, you know, some people believe women shouldn't play video games, and I think that's totally wrong. You know, when I've seen sort of women playing esports, they've been exactly the same as the male counterparts. I just think it's like that old school sort of way of viewing things, like gamers can only be male sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that still lives in there. I know a lot of us are really pushing for women's esports and especially like, you know, multi-gender competitions as well, you know, so it's not just a male competition or a female competition. It makes no sense because my women's Counter-Strike team are literally demolishing so many people. I said, like, I've always wanted gaming to be really inclusive, and I think, you know, people need to start pushing that from every angle, you know, to make that change for more female competitions. You know, it's like my cousin actually. She really wants to sort of get into gaming and esports. But then it's like, where do I go to compete on a level? Because I can't compete in sort of these competitions because it's male stigmatized. I'm a big advocate for it. You know, I really hope the industry does change that way. But there is stuff coming through that a lot of the big third-party providers and the game developers are creating multi-gender or female-based competitions. Definitely, I'll support that 100%. And you know, going forward.
For a normal person watching, whatever, what is the difference between a streamer and an esports athlete?
I pretty much put both in the same pot, really. There's not really much of a difference. You're still an influencer at the end of the day. Even if you're a low grassroots player, you're still an influencer for that game because you're part of that community. So an example is, you know, people might make content on Counter Strike. They might not be very good at Counter Strike, but they're still feeding that information to people who might be esports athletes. So at the end of the day, it's like that transferable stuff, you know, from both sides. And that's
Yeah,
why I put them in the same pot. You know, when people leave esports, they become an influencer because they've got a huge following because they played for big teams.
yeah,
You know, and I think that's it's very important to acknowledge because the biggest thing is that an esports athlete's career might not last longer than a year, and we've seen so many players sort of lose their skill or they get replaced. Where do they go from there? You'll notice that everyone is streaming and content creating when they're an esports player to build their brand because they know their career might not be long. It's
yeah,
only Call of Duty that I think that we see the old school pros still in, and maybe
yeah.
Halo.
Because Call
Um,
of Duty has not changed much.
no, no. In terms of players, it's not. You know, and I think that's quite interesting because we see that, you know, two sides of the coin. You know, we see players that are still playing after 6 years of competition,
Yeah,
and Halo as well. And I mean, we've had a lot of new people come in the Halo sort of arena. But then you get League of Legends and Overwatch, which are new type of esports games where, you know, all these new people are coming in. And then there's a lot of people retiring out of that. And then a whole rush of new people still entering. So, yeah, you know, and some people enter that because they're really well known. I mean, a good example is Ninja. Obviously, he was an exceptional Halo player. And then obviously moved into BR streaming with H1Z1 and stuff. And then now obviously Fortnite. And 100%. In my opinion, obviously he now is on Mixer, and obviously since that's owned by Microsoft and Halo coming out, he's going to be a big Halo influencer basically, because of his background. And I think that sort of ties in together, that he'll be like that esports professional turned sort of influencer for Halo. I definitely think they're both the same, realistically.
What makes somebody who plays games an esports athlete?
Yeah, so what makes people esports athletes? I'm not too sure. I mean, for me, it's still figuring that out, because technically we're not athletes. There's that big argument. That argument's been there for quite a while now, about are esports players athletes or not. From a personal point of view, I just don't know yet. There's so many opinions going around and so many things happening, that you can't really pinpoint if someone's an athlete or not. But then do you call a darts player an athlete because they use darts to compete, or racing drivers? It's still the same, using a tool to compete.
Bowling, whatever.
Yeah, you got a controller. There's multiple buttons and split-second decisions, and you're relaying that on a screen and what's going on the screen as well. So yeah, it's very reactive. So does that equate to someone being an athlete? I don't know yet. So that's probably my honest opinion on it.
For me, yeah. I was definitely one of the, when the people first started saying esports, I was like, and athletes, all that kind of stuff. And I've been playing games, dude, since Pong when I was 3 in 1980. I'm old, dude. I'm 43, you know what I mean? And so I've been playing games for a long time. So when they were like, oh, esports and athletes, I was like, what are you talking about? Because I played hockey, football, basketball, whatever. You're not actually hitting somebody or punching or throwing a ball or hitting something with a stick, whatever. That's how I was at first, right? And then I started looking into it more, and I was seeing these teams for CSGO or Rainbow Six or whatever that spend 6 to 10 hours a day practicing plays and learning the maps, and I'm going to shoot the hole in the floor right here, and then you flank around to the right and all this stuff. So they're coming up with legit plays. They regiment their diet. They have exercise routines, because I can't tell, you look like a pretty good shape guy or whatever, but right here I look like I'm great shape. I'm a big dude, muscle. Now I'm fat, belly wise. I look like I'm pregnant. So if you are by nature somebody who's always sitting and playing, like me, I'm sitting, filming, editing. I'm always on the computer one way or another, and it has affected my metabolism and my health. And it doesn't help that I'm 43. But for me, when you look at an esports athlete, they're practicing, they have a team, they're doing plays, they're regimenting their food, their exercise, their sleep. That's exactly what people in basketball and everything else are doing. And then when you have actual team owners of professional, NFL and NBA teams coming in and buying an Overwatch team for what was it, 14 or 20 million or whatever it was, to me that made it a sport, not just because they came in and bought it, but all of those things combined. That's kind of what converted me and made me say, yeah, they're athletes.
Yeah, it's a very weird area that we're in right now, because obviously with video games being accepted, I mean, in the UK it's still not, so it's still very hard over here, especially from an esports point of view. Obviously we've got multiple people like British Esports Association, etc., that are really trying to push it and make in schools and in general society. But yeah, that's where it comes in as well, especially the whole talk about Olympics and stuff. I'm not going to go into that, but yeah, what makes an athlete, and as you said, the nutrition and stuff, that's something that you got to take into consideration. These players have set nutrition and go to the gym and all that type of stuff now, and that's their full-time job.
All right, man. So thanks for joining us, and I appreciate what you had to say. What should people look forward to?
So people should look forward to an extensive look into esports. One of the key things that I do go over is how you can get into esports or sort of ease your career into there. And if you don't want to be a player, how to be included in that through things like social media management, events management, and just how to use your passion to get a career in esports.
So check out QGX Academy this Saturday, 6 p.m. on Crowdcast. Jordan Eastwood with how to get into esports.